Welcome to The Value Shot. I'm Jeffrey D. Brown, publisher and editor of Guitar Business World. Now, these 16 original episodes were featured at the back of the show on Guitar Business Radio, where I talked about some basic foundational building blocks that you can use to help drive your business or career to the next level. Those segments have now been edited and repackaged for presentation here on GBW. They're short and full of simple but really powerful ideas you can put to use right now. I suggest listening to them in sequence to get the most out of them. So let's get to it. So in episode 10, I started talking about taking your business or career to the next level. And remember, my approach is to give you this in small foundational bites that you can easily digest and integrate into your thinking if you so choose. We started off talking about having the vision to see yourself already operating at the next level. You can maybe think of it as putting together a puzzle, and in this case, it's important to see the picture before you can start putting the pieces of it together. But again, we should note that the puzzle picture may change over time, and so may the pieces. Being aware of that possibility and not getting invested in narrow expectations, especially where future outcomes are variable, is key. Remember, I talked about this in episode 5 when we got into the perils of the expectation game. And have you started to notice that all of the stuff I've been talking about is related in one way or another? That's why it's important, if you're interested in getting the most out of this, to go back and listen to the value shot segments from previous episodes if you haven't done so. Now, in the previous episode, I started talking about implementing your vision by outlining some behavioral characteristics that are, in my opinion, critical to the process. The first characteristic is attitude, and I mentioned 3 elements to look for. Those are polarity, are you positive or negative? View, are you long-term or short-term? And are you doing this for love or money? The second characteristic is focus, and my 3 primary elements there are clarity, discipline, and routine. But today, I'm going to introduce the third characteristic. You knew there would be 3, right? So we're talking about knowledge. And this is all about knowing what you know. In other words, understanding the depth and breadth of your own usable knowledge can be very helpful. Down the road, we'll get into leveraging it, but first I want to lay out the 3 elements of knowledge as I see it. First, there are skills. What do you know how to do? And more specifically, what do you know how to do that will help advance your vision? Of course, you may not have all the skills needed here, but that brings me to element number 2. My second element is resources. What resources are available to you to take care of the things that you don't know how to do, or don't have time to do, or just don't want to do? And remember, we're just talking about knowledge-related resources here. And there's a third and vital element, which is experience. Now, there are those who say experience doesn't mean as much in this immediate everything world we're operating in today. The thinking on that, I guess, is that things are changing so fast that much of the tangible experience that people draw on is rendered obsolete in a fairly short order now, thus making it far less relevant. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm referring to your experience in thinking. Have you learned from your experiences how to think about and process your skills and resources in the most useful and productive way? For instance, can you, based on your experience, articulate your own skill set and where and how those skills can be applied? Based on your experience, can you determine what resources you have and where they can be used most effectively? You know, in the 1980s, seems like forever ago, I owned a design and advertising agency. In those days, some of you may remember, we used those big hot wax machines that you rolled type galleys and other artwork through in order to paste them up onto artboards. The experience of using those waxers would be of little use to me today, but the knowledge of how to effectively integrate those tools of the trade to create a productive result, well, that transcends the obsolescence or innovation of the tools themselves. And that's the kind of experience I'm talking about here. Okay. Now, for some of you, possibly you've been listening to these value shot segments, and maybe on the surface it makes sense, but you're not quite sure what to do with it or what it has to do with you and your business or career. That's okay. There is some rhyme and reason to what I'm doing here. Basically, Each week, I'm throwing out some dots. And at the same time, I'm connecting some of the dots to other dots that I threw out in other episodes. That's what I'm going to continue to do with this segment for some time to come. Now, I used the puzzle metaphor earlier, but I suppose one of the other ways that you could look at it is that I'm giving you the individual pieces of a puzzle along with clues as to how they go together. Over time, significant pieces of the bigger puzzle picture will begin to take shape and you'll see them. And at some point further down the road, if you're still tuned in and interested, the full picture will be apparent. But I can assure you of this, for each one of you, that picture will be different. That's because I'm not giving you the picture. I'm giving you the tools to create the pieces of your own puzzle picture if you choose to see it. In the short run, the dots of information I'm passing along to you can be used in many cases by themselves. The old saying, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, definitely applies here, but that does not mean that the parts themselves have no value. They do. So again, if you have questions or thoughts about any of this, don't hesitate to contact me through one of the many channels available, such as email, phone, social media, whatever. I'd love to hear from you, and I can assure you I will respond appropriately as quickly as possible. Always stay positive. Keep your focus on the destination and make sure all your options are open on how you're going to get there. Well, I hope you got some value from that, but I do want to emphasize again the need to listen in sequence. And just so you know, there are brand new episodes of The Value Shot on the way, so be sure you're subscribed to Guitar Business World here on Substack to get those as well as new editorial features and valuable resources. As always, we love to hear from you with questions or thoughts. You can contact us directly at guitarbusiness@substack.com. guitarbusiness@substack.com. I'm Jeffrey D. Brown. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.